Our first speaker is Denise Bard. Denise is a teacher in Danbury, Connecticut. Having achieved her master's degree at the University of Hartford, she has been teaching for 10 years in Danbury. Denise has 2 children that attend public school in New Milford. She is committed to extensive research on Common Core. She has been asked to speak at 3 Common Core presentations in the recent months. Denise has been consistent presence at every New Milford Board of Ed meeting since November 2013. At each, Denise has spoken and provided reference documentation to our Board of Ed members, New Milford School Administration, and leadership. Please welcome Denise Bard.
Can you hear me without the microphone?
No.
Kind of. Better? Oh, better? Yeah. Okay. All right. First, I want to say welcome to everyone, and thank you, Cheryl, for that great introduction. As she said, I have been researching Common Core since about November of last year, and I am invested in this because I have 2 children in grades 1 and grades 3. So I'm just here to share the information that I have found. A lot of it is documented, and you'll find that on the reference sheet if you took one. Okay, so we start out with Common Core and Smarter Balance Test, what parents need to know. I'm going to start off with a timeline of events. In response to the economic crisis of 2008, the U.S. Department of Education received $5 billion for education reform. In 2009, Secretary of Education Arne Duncan launched the Race to the Top initiative, in which states could apply for grant money as long as they agreed to specific terms, which included adoption of the Common Core standards. In 2010, Connecticut applied for the Race to the Top grant several times, and we were denied. They applied even before the standards were completed and released in July of 2010. This leaves one wondering, which elements played a larger role in Connecticut's decision to adopt the Common Core? The chance to win grant money, or a thorough review of the academic value of standards? In August of 2010, the Commissioner of the Connecticut State Department of Education at the time acknowledged that the prevailing paradigm for school improvement is not based on a solid foundation of research or hard evidence. He also shared that as a matter of public policy, competitive grants like Race to the Top make winning or losing a questionable strategy. That leads us into May of 2012, when Connecticut received the No Child Left Behind waiver. The approval was based on Connecticut's willingness to adopt the Common Core standards, establish a P20 Council, which is a state longitudinal data system, transition to the next generation assessments, which for Connecticut is the Smarter Balanced, or the SBAC, and evaluate teachers differently. I thought it was really important to put this on a slide. This is the Common Core mission statement as it appears on the Common Core website. It states to provide a consistent, clear understanding of what students are expected to learn, so teachers and parents know what they need to do to help them. The standards are designed to be robust and relevant to the real world, reflecting the knowledge and skills that our young people need for success in college and careers. So who wrote these standards? The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation gave $4.35 billion to the National Governors Association and Chief Council of State School Officers. These organizations are not recognized as a branch of government, and they do not have grants of authority from the state. According to the Chief Council of State School Officers website, their partners included, among others, McGraw-Hill Education, Microsoft, Pearson, ACT, Apple, and College Board. All of the writers of the standards were affiliated with businesses that make educational and testing material, including ACT, Achieve, the College Board, and America's Choice, which is Pearson. In essence, they were written by people who would directly benefit people affiliated with testing and textbook companies, and businesses that make educational material. However, one of the key writers of the standards said, the concept of college readiness is minimal and focuses on non-selective colleges, and that was by Jason Zimba. You also have 5 members of the validation committee who refused to sign the validation statement on the standards. You also have 300 early childhood health and education professionals who expressed their concerns and were ignored, that the standards were not developmentally appropriate in kindergarten and early grades. The concerns of those professionals were presented in writing. The document is known as the Joint Statement of Early Childhood Health and Educational Professionals on the Common Core Standards Initiative. The first paragraph of the document reads, and I quote, "We have grave concerns about the core standards for young children. The draft standards conflict with compelling new research in cognitive science, neuroscience, child development, and early childhood education about how young children learn, what they need to learn, and how best to teach them in kindergarten and the early grades." So now we're going to go to the feedback and validation committee. Once the standards were drafted and completed, they were presented to a feedback group. The feedback group was populated primarily by college professors and 1 high school teacher. Many members of the feedback committee also served on the validation committee. Members of the validation committee were nominated by the National Governors Association and Chief Counsel of School State Officers. According to the Common Core website, there were 29 members of the validation committee, but only 24 signed a certificate of validation. Okay, so who signed and who didn't? Of the members that signed the certificate of validation, 1 served as the education advisor to the Obama campaign, and at least 8 had ties to organizations that received funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The people who refused to sign were Dr. Sandra Stotsky and Dr. James Milgram, who have been very vocal in their concerns about the standards. 2 other members that refused to sign were college professors, and 1 was from the education testing services, the SATs. Some of the reasons why these experts wouldn't sign off was because there was no evidence. No evidence that the standards would enhance equality. No evidence that students who studied these standards would be prepared for careers. No evidence that this would cause more students to study math and science or go into the STEM programs, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. There was no evidence that these standards would make our children globally competitive. And there was also no evidence presented of international benchmarking. So this brings me into the math standards. This is a slide from the 2011 Connecticut Assessment Forum. The math standards end with a weak Algebra 2, as you can see in high school. It says algebra, which means that students who want to apply to the top colleges or pursue a career in STEM majors will not meet the necessary criteria. This was one of James Milgram's biggest concerns.